All right, everyone. So let's take a look at approximately how much energy it is going to take if you want to complete the limited event fusion that we have going on in Raid Shadow Legends right now. So I went back and I took a little bit of a deeper look at the numbers in order to fuse Harvest Jack. There's a lot of information that you can actually end up getting through the news post right here. A frightening fusion event. Obviously, this has all the details of how you are going to be able to get all of the champions in order to finally end up fusing for Harvest Jack. Now, obviously you can't end up getting exact numbers because we still don't know the exact details of exactly how many points you're going to need for this really big champion training event. A lot of it is also going to depend on RNG and how lucky you get with certain drops, like from the campaign and from the dungeons. And also for some events here and there are certain things that you can end up doing to bypass using a bit of energy, like for the champion training tournament, this one right here. For the champion training tournaments, one of the big differences between the events is that the tournaments really mostly focus on leveling up your champions in the tavern. Not really a big fan of that, but of course that means that you can use brews to end up bypassing using some energy. So these are going to be approximate numbers. You guys will see that the ranges from the low end to the high end are going to be pretty big. These are going to be a bit different for everybody, how efficient you are, how lucky you are, but it'll still give you a rough idea of how much energy you need to dedicate to this event if you want to end up fusing Harvest Jack. So this should give you guys a pretty good idea. So with that being said, let's jump right to it. And let's start off with the first champion, which is honestly going to be one of the more interesting ones. That is going to be the first epic champion for the fusion, Sui Firstborn. Now, Sui Firstborn doesn't actually have any rare champions that you can acquire in order to fuse for her, but there are two opportunities in order to get her. So you can get her from the Champion Chase tournament, which is going to be starting pretty soon, and you can also get her from that really, really big, long champion training event, which we don't know the amount of points. My guess is it's going to be 20,000 or 30,000 points for this really, really big champion training event. So you have two choices for Sui Firstborn. You can either end up using shards to bypass the energy and try to summon her from that Champion Chase tournament, or you can end up using energy for the champion training event. Keep in mind, it's probably going to be a pretty big number for both of these. Now, me personally, I would prefer going with the energy option just because I always like to end up saving my shards for double rate events when they do come around. But you guys will also see that a little bit of an unfortunate thing about this fusion is it seems like you're given a choice right here. You can either pick the Champion Chase tournament or you can pick the champion training event, but you guys will see as we get down the list into the other champions, you actually there are champions required for other fusions where you actually have to participate in both of these. So, I mean, it looks like you have a choice right here at the start, but when you get into it a little bit further, you guys will see that you're still going to kind of have to participate in both of these if you are missing blue champions for the other epic fusions. So it's going to be really hard to say exactly how much energy or how many shards. These are both going to be really big because that champion training event is really, really long. It's definitely going to be something in the 20 to 30,000 point range. So definitely expect to need a lot of resources for that. So that's going to be the first of the epic champions. Now let's dive into the second one, Maeve. Now for this one, there are 4 rare champions that you can acquire in order to fuse her. And if we take a look at some of the numbers, the first one, Stitched Beast, is going to come from the Champion Training Tournament. Now once again, the Champion Training Tournament is a bit different than the Champion Training event. This is the one where you get points from leveling stuff up in the actual tavern. Not a huge fan, of course, but you can end up using some brews to bypass energy. So the more brews you use, the less energy you will have to use for this event, or I guess the tournament. Now, the second one is going to be Hyris. Hyris is going to end up coming from the campaign. And this is going to really depend on, first of all, if you have any copies of her saved up. This is why it is never a bad idea to end up saving copies of rares in your champion vault for situations like this. I might still end up having a copy of her. If not, a lot of it is really going to depend on the actual RNG of how lucky you are in order to get her. I want to say it's around 2%, you know, anywhere between like 1 in 50 to 1 in 100, something in that general ballpark range. Sometimes you'll get lucky and you get a bunch of them at once. Sometimes, unfortunately, you do not get lucky and you can go many refreshes without actually finding one of the rare champions in the campaign. But we'll just say roughly 500 energy, which is a little bit above a 1% drop rate. So a pretty conservative number. Now, the next one is going to be Beast Wrestler, which is a limited time drop in the Spider Dungeon right here. You guys will see that the dungeon champions are limited drops right now. You have this guy right here. You have the one in the Dragon's Lair, and then you also have the one in Fire Knight's Castle, and once again, there is none in Ice Golem's Peak, so I would stay away from farming that. If you guys need these limited time champions in the dungeons, my suggestion is do this now, like close to the time that this video is being released. The reason is because there is a Dungeon Divers event going on right now, which is an excellent opportunity to get overlap in Raid Shadow Legends with an event. Now, when I say overlap, that means that you are going to be able to farm the event more efficiently, because not only will you be progressing towards the Dungeon Divers event that's going on right now, and you'll be able to get the points for all the goodies from here, as well as get the champions that you'll need for the fusion from the Dungeon Divers event, but you'll also be farming for these champions that drop from here, which if you don't end up getting them now during the Dungeon Divers event, if you're going to want to do the fusion, you're still going to need to end up getting them anyway. So now is a good time to kind of knock out 2 birds with 1 stone. I know I say that a lot, but that's the name of the game when it comes to Raid Shadow Legends. Anytime you can do things more efficiently, you're going to want to do so. It's going to end up saving you time and energy, valuable resources in Raid Shadow Legends. So that is going to be from the Spider Dungeon. And then the 4th champion is going to be from the Dungeon Divers event. Now, normally this would actually be a bit more than 1,000 energy. It was actually closer to around 2,000 energy. But the reason why I bumped it down is because of that overlap. So if you guys go for these champions outside of the Dungeon Divers event, it's going to be actually a little bit more energy than what I am going to be displaying on the screen. That's why whenever you can do things efficiently, you want to, and that's why I bumped down the energy a little bit. So if you guys are watching this video later on, after the Dungeon Divers event, you might want to add, 500 to 1,000 energy or so to these numbers, because I factored that in to making this video right here. So that's just going to be an approximate for Maeve. Now, once again, for the tournament, a little bit hard to say depending on how many actual brews that you have, but as you can see, it's already a pretty decent amount of energy, and we've only gone through 1 to 2 of the champions. So next up is going to be High Khatun. Now, those of you guys who have High Khatun from the login rewards, me personally, I would rather keep that one and then try to get another one, because High Khatun is a really fantastic champion. However, if you guys are limited on resources, you can always kind of just borrow that one and then try to get this one. You can figure something out. So, I mean, that option is there. It's nice that it is a champion that we have access to through the login rewards, but if you actually want to get High Khatun through all the stuff that's available with the events running right now, again, you're going to be looking at a pretty decent amount of energy. So the first of these 4 rare champions, the Amarantine Skeleton, is going to be from the Arena Assault event, and that one obviously not going to use energy. It's going to use arena tokens, and depending on how well you guys end up saving up for that, you might have to end up doing some refreshes. We really don't know the details of it. I feel like for a lot of these events, the Arena Assault events for champions needed for fusion have not been too difficult, but who knows, guys? Polarium might do Polarium things. It is a longer Arena Assault event, which makes me a little bit worried, November 1st through November 7th. But I would suggest, as we get closer to this date, try to save up some of those arena bags, maybe claim these until close to your daily reset. Same with the actual quest rewards, because not only will you have the option to not claim these until really close to your daily reset, but they'll also stay in your mailbox for another 24 hours after that. So the second champion that you need for High Khatun is Muckstalker, which is once again going to end up being a campaign champion. When we do the numbers for the campaign champions, I'm using approximately 500. You might get lucky, you might not get lucky. That's why I said at the start of this video, all these numbers are just you know, an approximate. So take that with a bit of a grain of salt, I guess you could say. No pun intended there. Let's see here. Dragon's Lair and the Dungeon Divers, approximately 1,000 energy each. Once again, the numbers were lowered a little bit because we are in the middle of that Dungeon Divers event going on, so you can get some overlap with the actual Dungeon Champions and the actual Dungeon Divers event. So that gives you pretty similar numbers to the other champion, approximately 2,500 energy. Once again, could be a bit more, could be a bit less, depending on how efficient, how lucky you are, and if you have any of these champions already. And we have Lady Etessa. Now, Lady Etessa is going to be the last of the 4 epic champions that you need in order to fuse for Harvest Jack. And for Lady Etessa, you have the champion training tournament. Once again, the tournament is the one that takes place in the tavern, so the more brews you are able to use, the less energy it's going to take, so kind of a hard number to really figure out from that one. Then you have the typical dungeon champion and the campaign champion, which is kind of a theme among many of these. So that's going to be, you know, approximately 500 energy, unless you already have a copy of him, and then approximately, you know, 1,000 energy or so. And you have the Dungeon Divers ones, which normally would take a bit more energy, but because you can knock out 2 things at once, you're going to be able to do these a little bit more efficiently for the time being. And finally, you have the Agitator, which is from the Long Champion Training event. And I put question mark on this one because it's pretty hard to say. You know, there's going to be a big difference if this is a 20,000 point champion training, a 30,000 point champion training. I don't know. Maybe they'll even do a 40,000 one. That would be crazy. But it lasts for a very long time. And depending on where they actually place the champions, it's going to be pretty difficult to say. You know, like, where are they going to put the Agitator in that 20, 30, 40,000 points? Is it going to be towards the start? Is it going to be in the middle? Is it going to be at the end? I'm guessing it's probably not going to be at the end, because at the end of it is going to actually be the epic champion Sui Firstborn. So some of these numbers, as you guys can see, are, you know, can't really say for sure yet, but you could still get a pretty rough estimate from a lot of this stuff. Now, it's not over yet, guys. This is just the stuff that you need in order to actually fuse for Harvest Jack. But let's not forget that when you do a fusion, of course, if you go and take a look and see, well, you need to level up the rares all to level 40, which means that you have to fully level them up, then you have to rank them up, use food champions, and then you have to level them up again, and you also have to ascend them all to 4 stars. You have to do the same thing with the epics, except it's a step ahead. So you have to level up the epics to 40, then you have to rank them up and use food champions, and then you have to re-level them all the way up to 50, and then you have to ascend those. So that's a lot of work right there. The good news is a lot of the leveling up stuff can be done. Same thing, you can kind of knock out 2 birds with 1 stone. You can do it while doing a lot of other stuff. Like, you can end up leveling up a lot of the champions for the fusion when you are farming for the campaign champions. You know, Palace of Arabia, Godfrey's Crossing, Valdemar Strait. If you guys don't have copies of these champions already, you can kind of do 2 things at once, level up some champions for the fusion event, and also try to farm for those champions at the same time. Also, for the big champion training event, obviously, we don't know exactly how big it's going to be, but this is going to be the perfect time to get all that leveling, ranking up, and food stuff done at the same time. Now, the only thing that doesn't really have any overlap with all of this is going to be the Ascension Potions. There's no events here that are going to make it any easier to get Ascension Potions. Unfortunately, the Ascension Dungeons, they don't have gear drops, so you can't knock out the Dungeon Divers event. They don't really give much experience, so really not going to be worth it for the champion training. This is something you're going to have to find another time in order to do and figure out what days are going to work best for you to get a bunch of the potions. Now, I found a post on the Reddit courtesy to, let's see here, Elion3, thank you very much. This is going to show you all the potions that you are going to need for the Harvest Jack fusion. And as you can see, some of the keeps, not a ton, like the Spirit Keep, the Magic Keep, but then you have the Force Keep, which requires 12 superiors. and you have a lot of arcane potions that you're going to need as well, and in my experience, the drop rates there are really, really bad. So this is going to be another big chunk of energy that you need in order to do this Harvest Jack fusion. So now again, these are all approximate numbers. We're still missing some information, but this will give you a rough idea that it's going to be a lot of energy. So just for the fusion champions, we're looking at approximately 4,000 to 8,000 energy. Now, like I said at the start of the video, this is a very big range because it depends on the luck that you have with your dungeon champion drops, depends on the luck with your campaign champion drops. If you already have campaign champion drops, if you've been saving those in your vault, then you can save some energy on that. So it might be a little bit lower. But you can see that it's going to really depend because there's a lot of RNG factors in this that kind of go into it. But either way, you can see that it's a lot of energy. Now, the giant champion training event, the one that could be 20, 30, or 40,000 points, all these numbers that I counted do not count that giant champion training event because we don't really know the details of it yet. So even though all the energy numbers that you guys are seeing are really, really big right now, you know, keep in mind that that doesn't even really get into that giant champion training event that we have that's going to be coming up soon. Then you have the ascension potions again, of course, which there's no overlap. You're going to have to just find a time in order to farm those. You're looking at 1,000 to 2,000 plus energy, depending on if you already have some of the potions. Like me, you get a bunch of them from clan bosses if you do those every day, so might be able to save some energy on that, but still, that's a big chunk of energy. Leveling up champions to 40, 50. The good news is you'll be able to knock a lot of this out with that really big champion training event that is coming up. You can also be efficient and get some of that done while farming for the campaign champions. If you don't have those, you're looking at about 1,000 to 2,000 or so energy, maybe a bit more, maybe a bit less, but you can end up doing a lot of this stuff with some overlap, like that giant champion training events. So without that giant champion training event, you are looking at a rough range of between 6,000 to 12,000 plus energy. That is a lot of energy, and I'm guessing that the giant champion training event is probably going to take many, many thousands of energy as well. So let's just say the rough estimate number is going to be about 10,000 energy to get everything done. Now, it could be a lot higher, it could be a lot lower, but what this gives you an idea of is it's still a big number. It's not going to be just a couple hundred energy. It's going to be many, 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 many thousands of energy. So hopefully after watching this video, it kind of gives you an idea of what you're going to need to go through, what resources you're going to need to have in order to end up completing this. And, you know, if it's just too crazy to get done, you know, it might not even be worth getting into because unfortunately the way that these events are set up is even if you miss one thing, you know, if you just miss one little tiny rare champion, if you're missing one little star on your fusion, that ruins the entire thing. And because you're on a time limit, what's going to happen is now you've spent all these resources getting all this stuff, and now you're stuck with a bunch of pretty meh epics, a bunch of rares that you probably don't really need, and you just put a bunch of resources into it. So this is definitely something that you want to take a little while to think about and calculate and see if you can end up getting done and if it's going to be worth it for you. So that's kind of what I'm hoping this video helped out with. I know we got into a lot of numbers and math and stuff, but I think it's important, especially for an event like this. And this is a very good champion, I'm not going to lie. He is a very solid legendary. So if you guys do have the resources and you're feeling up to the challenge, I definitely think that this is worth it. Now for the Molly fusion, that one was a little bit more debatable. Molly definitely has her uses, but you know, that one, I think there are more people that could argue maybe it wasn't worth it. So now that you guys have all the numbers, I'm hoping you guys were able to use it. Thank you guys so much. I'm going to stop here because I've thrown a ton of info at you guys in this video. So I'm going to be calling it here. Thank you guys so much for watching. I'm really hoping it did help out. And if you guys did enjoy this video and it helped out, consider subscribing to the channel for more videos like this in the future. Thank you for all the support, everyone. And of course, if you have a quick second and you want to help out, tossing a quick like means a whole bunch as well. So thank you to all of you guys who do that. With that all being said, that's going to be it for today. Thanks for watching, everyone. Have a great one, and until next time, this is Salt of the Salty Guild, signing out.